Hi, it's Sheridan Webb here from the Training Designers Club, which is the place to go for practical L&D support, especially if you work on your own. And today I'm going to attempt to briefly answer the question, how can subject matter experts deliver more engaging and therefore useful sessions without having to become trainers? Now, this question gets asked in various guises very many times because in agile workplaces, we rely on subject matter experts to help share the load. We want to harness all of their knowledge and all of their experience, and we want that passed on to other people in the workplace. And a great example is my husband, who works in the medical profession. And quite often, really very specialist people are asked to come along and speak to more junior colleagues about their specialism. Some of these people deliver really interesting and impactful sessions, and some people just bore their pants off those junior colleagues. It's like my daughter, who recently started at Kyoto University. She was really lucky to be able to sample a number of courses, a number of modules. And she decided to drop one, not because she wasn't interested in the topic, she was actually very interested in it. But she said, "Mum, I cannot spend a year going to those classes where a guy just reads words off a slide." So this person may be the world's leading expert in plant biology, but if he can't get any of that over in a way that's meaningful to the people in his class, then there's no point in him really being a teacher. Now, if we're lucky, subject matter experts are really enthusiastic about their subject, and that's a great thing. But even then, although people may enjoy listening to them, it doesn't necessarily mean that they can go away and apply what they've learned. Worst case scenario, of course, is subject matter experts just bore people. The training has been an absolute waste of everybody's time. There's a number of reasons why subject matter experts, I think, are or can be ineffective. The first is that they suffer from the curse of knowledge. Now, this is something that we discussed on a Lunch and Learn a couple of years ago, and it's basically the fact that they have been expert for so long, they no longer remember what it's like not to know. So there's a massive assumption made about the entry-level knowledge, and they start talking in a shorthand that's so second nature to them, but nobody else understands it. They don't appreciate how big the gap is between where they are and where the general public is. They also tend to feel that, as a lot of people do who aren't trainers, that the more information we can provide, the better the session. Now, that's not true at all. We know that, and too much information can simply be overwhelming. And we know that just because something has been taught doesn't necessarily mean that it's been learned. In a similar way, they tend to only focus on head learning. So in giving information, they don't try and engage the heart or get people to interact with that content. So again, it sort of very much goes in one ear and comes out of the other. But that's not necessarily their fault, because chances are they've never been told how to structure an engaging presentation, let alone create an interactive training session for a mixed audience. So it's hardly surprising, really, when they tend to rely on what they know, which is facts and figures and information. Your subject matter experts are few and far between, and therefore they're probably very busy. So although they've been delighted to be asked to support you in your training, they've probably completely underestimated how long they're going to need to prepare that session. They probably didn't set aside a lot of time to design or prep, and certainly didn't give any thought into how they're going to bring that content to life. They may also have had a really vague, broad brief. Now, because their knowledge is so niche, it's very difficult to say to them, and we want you to cover X, Y, and Z, because you don't know what you don't know. They're the experts. That's why you're calling them in. So they will either focus on what interests them, or they will try and cover absolutely everything in the hour that you give them. So that's going to be challenging or irrelevant, however you slice it. So how can we help them to be more engaging in the sessions they deliver without having to put them on a formal train the trainer course? Well, there's quite a few things that we can do, quite a few quick wins. The first is be really specific about what aspect of their expertise you want them to share. So give them a very clear brief. So why are they delivering that presentation? Secondly, explain to them who they are delivering it to. What is their audience's needs? What are their desires? How are they going to likely to be using this information? What is their starting point? Help them to pitch it correctly so that that knowledge actually lands well with the people that are receiving it. In terms of content, encourage them to use the 80-20 rule. So they will undoubtedly give too much because they're enthusiastic, because they don't appreciate that not everybody actually needs to be an expert. They only need to know a little bit. So what's the 20% of stuff that this target audience would benefit from knowing? They do not need to know the rest. I think a really important thing that we can do to help subject matter experts is encourage them to rely less on slides and more on discussion and interactivity. Now, that makes subject matter experts very uncomfortable because the minute they step away from their prescribed talk, they are losing control. And that's quite a scary thing. When you're not a trained facilitator, you think, well, what if people say this and what if it goes off track? How do I manage those audience interactions? So we're not expecting them to be fully trained facilitators, but there are things that they can do. They can build in very simple show of hands questions. They can build in opportunities for people to talk to a neighbour. They don't even need to feed it back. And of course, employing simple tools like Kahoot, Slido, Mentimeter into their presentation will help to make it a little bit more interactive. And the final thing that you can do is introduce them to master. So when they are putting their short training session together, encourage them to follow master, because that will automatically mean that the session is relevant, it's informative, but most importantly, it's going to be engaging and interactive, because master is an accelerated learning acronym that automatically builds in all of those things that we know makes great training. MASTER stands for mindset, acquire information, sift for the meaning, trigger the memory, exhibit your learning, and review and reflect. And there is a 1 hour, just over an hour course available on the Training Designers Club website, which your subject matter experts can work through, which would make a huge difference to the short training sessions that they deliver. So you don't need to put them on a 3-day train the trainer program. You can just encourage them to work through that, and that will give them loads of ideas. There's even a workbook where you can basically fill the blanks and it will help design the session for you. So if you rely on subject matter experts to help you deliver training, maybe as part of an induction program or a leadership program, do encourage them to check that out. There's also a short course called Design Training in 6 Simple Steps. So if you rely on the same number of subject matter experts and you just want them to raise their game, or if they're interested in doing a little bit more, say without having to be a fully fledged trainer, then those 2 courses will be really, really helpful to them. So I hope you found those ideas useful. I will put the links to those courses in the notes. And for more tips, please check out the rest of the YouTube channel. Of course, visit the website for more courses and resources. It's www.trainingdesignersclub.co.uk. And you can also tune in to the Training Design podcast, which you can find via all major sources of your podcasting.